Hello and welcome to the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast. I'm your host, Shannon Crow. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And this podcast is being recorded on the land of the Anishinaabe, Odawa, and Mississauga people. It's really important to me that I continue to learn about the land that I live on, the First Nations people who cared for it for so long, and the history and culture of my settler and immigrant ancestors. If you're new here and brand new to the podcast, a huge welcome. And here's a little bit about who I am and why I do this work. I'm a Canadian yoga teacher, mom, entrepreneur, and forever student who loves to ask questions. And I feel like that's why podcasting is a good fit for me. I get to talk to amazing people, yoga teachers, entrepreneurs, all kinds of people from around the world, and ask them questions about all kinds of topics, and then share that time with you. It feels like a dream job on many, many days. I also work as the founder of Pelvic Health Professionals, and this is a place where movement educators and healthcare professionals collaborate, and together we learn the most up-to-date information regarding pelvic health. If you're curious to see what that work is all about, visit pelvichealthprofessionals.com. And you can also join the membership there if you feel like, okay, I want to learn more about pelvic floor and the core and how the body works. And then, all of the pelvic health issues that you might be seeing with your yoga students, everything from like pelvic pain, endometriosis, not that it's a condition, but pregnancy and birthing, all kinds of things that your yoga students will be dealing with, we talk about in there. So again, that's pelvichealthprofessionals.com if you want to check that out. Returning listeners, you know the drill around here. This podcast is really made for you, the yoga teacher, because I understand how it feels to leave your 200-hour yoga teacher training, be out in the world and thinking, oh my gosh, where do I even start? You want to balance running a business along with continuing education and all of the other parts that go along with being a yoga teacher. And so I wanted you to have a place where you can connect to ideas and information along with other yoga teachers, and a place where you can listen while you're on the go. Maybe you're driving to classes, maybe you're cleaning yoga mats in a space, maybe you are just sitting at home enjoying a cup of tea or watering your plants. Whatever you're busy doing, I wanted a place where you could tune in and connect each and every week. So thank you so much for being here. It means a lot to me. Today's podcast episode is powered by OfferingTree. So you might have heard me talk about this company because I use and love their software in my own business, with everything from booking people in for a yoga session to booking people in for a podcast interview. I love how I can do my bookings, payments, Zoom links, reminders, and so much more, and it's all automated. We have a special podcast listener discount code over at offeringtree.com/Shannon if you want to check it out and find a software that fits you as a yoga teacher. This week on the podcast, I wanted to dig in and share an email that I got from a listener who graciously gave me permission to share their words. And before I read the email, I first want to say thank you so much to those of you who have held me in your thoughts, who've taken the time to reach out on social media or via email since I shared some really personal things in episode 339 and 340. So I'll link to those in the show notes for today's episode in case you missed them as well. And I wanted to share a quick update before I get into the email. So yes, I'm still sitting in some fairly heavy grief, and I know I'm not alone. Many of you have reached out to tell me that you are also struggling with things in life and or business. And if you are listening to this right now and you're like, oh my gosh, so am I, you're not alone. We're all in this together. I've been finding a lot of comfort in gardening and being outdoors. And I've also been a little bit worried that as the weather is cooling down and winter is approaching where I am here in Canada, and if any of you have been watching my Instagram stories over the years, or if you've been listening to the podcast and heard me talk about it, you'll know that I sometimes struggle with winter the most. The garden gets all tucked away under this blanket of snow, and I sometimes struggle to get out when it's cold and blizzard-like outside where I live. So there is a part of me that's sort of dreading that, but I know what helps is to go outside, to get out there. Just do it each and every day, even if I don't feel like going out in the cold. Oh, I also want to tell you about something exciting that happened this month in the garden. And that is that I ordered 4 dump truck loads of horse manure. It's fairly well rotted, by the way, not just fresh from the barn. And then I paid a skid steer operator to spread it around. And guess where we put it? I'll give you a minute in case you want to shout out your guess as you're listening. Where do you think we got the horse manure spread? If you really know lots of details about me, you'll know that I really dislike cutting the lawn. And I kind of feel like it's a pointless thing to have a lawn. So that's where we got it spread. We got it spread on our lawn. Now, I did an experiment this spring, and I did share this in an email. Photos and all went out. So I shared where I took rotted horse manure and put it directly on the grass. So I got some last winter or last fall, around this time last year, and then I let it rot all winter and just break down. And then in the spring, I put it directly on a part of our lawn on the grass. And then I planted potatoes in that spot. And I have to tell you, the update now, it worked like a charm. I dug half the potatoes this week, and they're amazing. They're huge potatoes, and they're so delicious when they're fresh from the garden. So I decided to try a new experiment for next year's garden. So instead of letting the horse manure sit in this huge pile and compost down over the winter, I got it spread on the lawn this year. It's nice and thick. It's over a foot deep right now, and it's going to compost down a bit more over the winter. And then in spring, I'm going to plant in there. Likely potatoes because they're heavy feeders. And I have to say, it would have taken me so long to move that with a wheelbarrow. Last year, it took me all year to move 2 loads of rotted down horse manure by wheelbarrow. And I just did a little bit at a time. This year, it took the skid steer operator less than an hour. One thing that is sort of bringing me joy about this whole story is that my neighbors and some friends and family think that this is just a crazy idea. So even the dump truck driver wanted to see what was going on. So I gave him a garden tour the last time that he dumped some off. And it truly lights me up to get other people, being like, oh my gosh, that's just a crazy thing to do. I like them to see how it's not that hard to take a piece of lawn and turn it into a place where you can grow food. I also love that this gets me out in nature and that I can, have time outside. And I really think that when more and more people have time outside, it can impact us emotionally, physically, in a good way. And also it can impact the earth we're standing on in a really positive way, the more that people are outside. So that's a little update of what's going on in the garden. And then also I'm going to get into this email. But before I do that, I also want to share one more thing. It's an OfferingTree update. So they sponsor today's podcast episode. But I'm also really excited to see that they've added a new feature. So I wanted to tell you about that. And it was added because OfferingTree users told the OfferingTree team, hey, this is something that we really need. So now the update is that when your yoga students are signing up for a class or a workshop or an event, they can sign up their friends and family with a single registration. So before, they had to, log in with a different email and go through all of these steps. This way, let's say you're a busy mom and you've got 2 teenage kids that want to take this yoga class. You can use one login, one email, and sign up anybody who wants to go to yoga from your computer. This is really cool. I just want to give a huge shout out of thank you to the team over at OfferingTree for really adding in features that us users are asking for. Now, if you are looking for an all-in-one software for yoga teachers or studios, check out OfferingTree. It's amazing if you want to create a website that's easy to use and update, if you want to build an online video library for your yoga classes, workshops, or trainings, if you want to take payments online when students sign up for your offerings, or if, like me, you really want to simplify and automate the Zoom links, email reminders, and time zones. That's my favorite part of this software. All of this is available via OfferingTree. It's seriously the best all-in-one software that I know of, and it's the most reasonably priced. So it's the best of both worlds. And the best news is that we have a discount code for you because you're a podcast listener. That's over at offeringtree.com/Shannon. Okay, I'm finally going to get into this email that was sent to me. So this is after I did episode 339 and 340. This podcast listener writes, "Hi, Shannon. First, I want to tell you how much I enjoy your podcast, Facebook group, and emails. I live in rural Alberta, and I can feel quite isolated at times, and these really help." Okay, I just want to say right off the top, I'm so excited when I read something like this because I get it. That's why the podcast was created, is that I know how it feels to be isolated as a yoga teacher. So I was really excited to read that. Okay, the email goes on to say, "I really appreciate your honesty and how you feel running a yoga business at times. I feel this way quite often as well. It's challenging at times, but I really do enjoy teaching yoga, just not the aspects of running the business sometimes. What I'm learning is that when I feel overwhelmed, it's time for a break. Your comment on the podcast about wanting the podcast you listen to be there every week, I get because I look forward to yours. But we all need time away to do the things we love as well. I just got back from a week of camping in the mountains in Alberta with my hubby and new puppy. There was no cell service, which I worry about sometimes because of my yoga business. But it was absolutely wonderful to get away from everything and just enjoy my family, the mountains, hiking, and biking. I have come back refreshed and ready to get back at it. So if your podcast is not on one week, I'll be thinking that you're taking a much needed break to refuel. You mentioned the grief you were experiencing. All grief is different and we all experience it in our own way. There's no right or wrong way. I have also experienced grief. Our son passed away due to an accident 16 years ago. We don't realize the effect it can have on us, and the societal norm of what we should do or not is way off. My thoughts, just get over it. Be compassionate with yourself. It can be extremely tiring, overwhelming, and challenging. My yoga practice is what kept me going. I had an amazing teacher that saw lots of tears in class and held that space for me as safe to release. I wasn't teaching at that time. You will have good days, not so good days, and really hard days. That is okay. As Judith Hanson Lasseter says, how human of you. I hope this helps. I'm not that good at expressing my feelings in words. I don't usually send comments, but when I heard the podcast, I felt that I needed to. Also, I would love a retreat. Take care, Shelley. Oh my gosh, Shelley, thank you for giving me permission to share this email with our listeners, along with your first name. It's really special to me that the podcast is supporting you, along with the Facebook group and my emails. And also, I just love, first of all, you said in your email, I'm not that great at expressing, but as soon as I read this, I just felt comforted. I felt like you really were sitting with me in my grief and feeling like, okay, we just need to deal with it in our own time and be compassionate with ourselves. And also for giving me permission to take a break. That was really sweet of you to say, I will understand as a podcast listener. And it just means so much. So thank you for allowing me to share this email on the podcast. Right now, I'm working at putting a few podcasts together that require a little extra research and work. And when I got your email, I was like, you know what? I could share this along with a quick update. And that's a bit of a compromise. Still, I'm putting a podcast out this week, but it's partially your email. Shelley, it's partially yours. So thank you for co-creating this with me. And it's also a little bit quicker and easier for me to record. So I feel like this is not entirely a week off, but it's the next best thing, thanks to your email. Because right now I still cannot seem to bring myself to take a break and take a week off from podcasting. So you've got this episode here today. And I really do want to say I also appreciate all of those who wrote similar emails to me saying, you know what, I would totally understood if you took a podcast break. And some of you reached out on social media, lots of you did, and said, Shannon, you can take a break. So thank you for saying that. Thank you for being so understanding. That was really sweet to get that feedback. Oh, also, I want to tell you, today is my 47th birthday, if you're listening to this on October the 2nd of 2023 when it releases. So I wanted to ask if you wanted to give me a virtual birthday gift. The best gift you could give is a review of the podcast. So you can go to your podcast app and leave a review, or you can do that from our show notes page, or you can leave a review on our Facebook page if you've already left us a podcast review. I'll link to our Facebook page in the show notes, or you can search for the Connected Yoga Teacher on Facebook, and you'll find both our business page and also our Facebook group. It's a little bit confusing, but one is a business page, and you can leave a review there. If you've already done this, if you're like, nope, I've done both, I've left reviews there, you get bonus points today, and I'm so grateful for you. But maybe you still want to give, and a great way to do that is share the podcast with a yoga teacher friend in an email or a social media post, or you can tell them in real life, because I think that's still a thing. And I also just want to say I appreciate you so much, dear listener, for doing that and for taking the time to listen today. I've just decided I'm calling this episode Grief, Breaks, and a Birthday, and it's not the average episode where I choose a topic that you've been asking questions about, and I really want to get the answers for our yoga teacher audience. But here it is, just like it is, an update with you and an email from one of our listeners. Oh, and I also want to share a little more on the biggest update. So back in that episode 339 and 340, when I talked about how close I came to quitting. And I can't remember if I also shared in there that I even looked at what would it be like to sell the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast or Pelvic Health Professionals as this way to sort of quit, but still work in the parts of the business that I love. Because I still love talking to you here on the podcast and talking to other amazing people and learning the latest about pelvic health and sharing that with you. Anyway, I realized in that time when I was really digging into this, thanks to therapy and friends and Sean really talking to me about this and just giving myself some time to reflect, that I really do love this work that I get to do. And I don't want to close this chapter right now. There's just so much from life kind of coming at me in a way that feels like a lot some days. So with this weight of the grief that I've been in, it makes it really tough sometimes to find the energy to do the work that is required, especially when it's like, oh, you have to do this update to a website and there's going to be like tech issues along the way, or hey, you get to sort through these 100 spam emails just to get to like one that's from a podcast listener. Those kinds of details, those kinds of moments in work are tougher when my energy is down. So if you are in a similar place where you are feeling like, wow, my energy is really low, the world feels really heavy right now, I would say ask yourself, what is the minimum that I need to do today to kind of keep things going? And how can I ask for help with the rest that still is on my list? And I don't have all the answers on this. I'm still figuring it out, but that helped me. And hearing from listeners like Shelly, oh my gosh, that really helped. All of the links for today's episode will be on our show notes page. That's episode 344. So if you go to theconnectedyogateacher.com/344, you can find all of the links there. And I also wanted to tell you, if you want to hang out in real time, we've got some really cool things happening. We are in the middle, or we've just started, a 7-week series that we're doing with Sarah Garden It's yoga for endometriosis and pelvic pain. You still can sign up for that. There are replays of all of the classes, so you won't miss anything. And you can still do some classes live with us. That runs until November the 2nd, so I'll make sure to put a link to that in our show notes for you. And then inside of Pelvic Health Professionals, we have some amazing calls coming up where we're going to be talking about diastasis recti, stress, the nervous system and the pelvic floor, pelvic health and cancer, and then how the pelvic floor and the feet are connected. That's happening each month, October, November, December, January, and we're always looking for topics that you're interested in that relate to pelvic health, that we can find a guest expert from around the world and bring them into our membership. And we pay the guest, and then everyone gets to share in learning together. So visit pelvichealthprofessionals.com to check that out or to join. Next week on the podcast, I think if I get this all put together, I really have this idea for an episode where we dig in a little bit more to talking about niche work, how to really show up in the places online and in your business and really show off your specialty, your niche as a yoga teacher. And there's a little baby step that I think everyone could try. It's not like a huge shift in your business. It's just one tiny baby step. And so I want to put an episode together. So that might be next week. We'll see how it goes. Thank you so much to Suzanne, Crunch, and Sinead, our team over here, for helping us to bring this podcast to your ears. And thank you, dear listener, for being here all the way to the end, even though you're like, what the heck is this episode? Grief breaks and a birthday? What's that about? I am signing off, and before I go, I want to leave you with my favorite question. What will you be doing this week to stay connected to yourself, your yoga practice, and to your community so that you can share the yoga that lights you up?